I be like, sheesh, sunset on the beach. Make me wanna pull up on Miami with the heat. I don't know about you, but I know about
All right,
me.
welcome back to the Anytime Sports Podcast Show. Andrew, we had a very eventful Week 7 of the NFL season. We're going to go over some of the key games that happened during Week 7. Let's start it off with the Seattle Seahawks beating the Atlanta Falcons 34-14. What were your thoughts on Seattle's dominating performance?
Yeah, this is a big one for them, especially with how Atlanta's been going into this week or been going into this, and Atlanta's like one of these spotty teams because we saw earlier in the season they came out with a big win, and that win was over Tampa Bay, this 36-30 win where Kirk Cousins balled out, and then they beat the Saints, and then they beat Philly, they beat Carolina before Seattle. But this was one that the Falcons needed to win. At the end of the day, they're still 4-3, so it's not terrible. But let's flip gears to the Seahawks, though. They're 4-3 as well. Geno Smith was 18 for 28, 207 with 2 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, leading receiver here, 99 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, it's an interesting situation because now both these teams are 4-3, and going into this week, Atlanta's got Tampa again, so this is going to be one they're going to want to win, and especially with Seattle going forward this coming up week, they got Buffalo, and they're going to want to win that one too. So 2 big games this week for both these teams. And Colin, I want to ask you, which of these teams do you think is more legit, and which team do you think has a chance to potentially squeak in the playoffs?
Well, I'll get back to your question on that. I think it's more impressive that the Seattle Seahawks are 4-3 than the Atlanta Falcons are 4-3. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks have, I'm looking right now, PFF has them rated as the 29th best offensive line in the league. Although they have been dealing with some injuries, they have had an atrocious offensive line this season. I know it hasn't been great at all. Seattle Seahawks fans could tell you. The only reason why they're doing well is Geno's playing at an elite level, and Kenneth Walker's able to break off some runs here and there. He's able to do some stuff. They've had a really bad offensive line this season. The fact that they're 4-3 gives me hope that they'll continue to play good. They're going to have to in that division that they're playing. But Atlanta, I mean, this is definitely a game you should have had, especially since you were at home in this one. You were coming against a Seattle team that we said had a bad offensive line. Can you pressure Geno? Geno wasn't really pressured in this game. He was very good, very lights out. 18 of 28 for 207 yards and 2 touchdowns in this one. DK Metcalf grabbing 4 receptions, 99 yards and a touchdown. Of course, he suffers an MCL strain in this one, which definitely affects them going forward and how we pick games because it's said to be week to week, but it's said he might play. So I don't know exactly how that really works this year in the NFL. Been very weird with injuries, and we'll speak about Brandon Ayuk, who didn't end up playing this past week, and we thought he was going to play. But, yeah, it's very weird. Kirk Cousins throws 2 interceptions in this one. They finally got Bijan Robinson really going. They gave him the ball more than 15, 16 times a game. They gave him the ball 21 carries or a touchdown, which I think is what they need to do. But what are your thoughts on the offense line of Seattle Seahawks and the Atlanta Falcons kind of having a hiccup in this one?
Yeah, I think it's like we say, games are won in the trenches. And if you can block, it doesn't matter what quarterback you have. I mean, it helps that you have Geno Smith back there, but if you give your quarterback time, you give him all the time in the world, and you give him time to read his receivers. You give him time to let the receivers get open. And then you can hand it off to Kenneth Walker. If you have good run blocking, then Kenneth Walker can get these long run gains. You got his long was a 20 in this game, 20-yard run. Yeah, exactly. The games are won in the trenches, but as for the Falcons, I wouldn't look past this game. You got some big games coming up, and ones that you're going to want to win. Who
do they have? I think they have. Yeah, they got the Buccaneers next week, so we'll talk about the Buccaneers as well. They got the Cowboys after that. So 2 technically winnable teams. We assume the Cowboys are going to bounce back after the bye. We'll talk about that later, probably when we're picking teams. But definitely 2 winnable games they got coming up. Hopefully they end up getting at least one. They beat the Buccaneers once before. That means they could beat them again. But let's move on to the next game that we have noted of importance. Green Bay beats The Houston Texans with the walk-off field goal. Brandon McManus is the hero in Green Bay. What were your thoughts on this game that didn't have much of C.J. Stroud playing really good football, but
Yeah.
they ended up being very close?
Yeah, it's like I was just saying this last game. Games are won in the trenches. If your O-line can't block, you can't win games. And it's frustrating as a Bears fan because the Texans will beat the Bears, but then the Packers will come out and beat the Texans. Both these teams are 5-2, but the Texans had a very, very strong case of going 6-1. If they would have pulled off this game, that would have looked 6-1 to start the season. Would have looked pretty dang good. But C.J. Stroud didn't play the greatest here. 10 for 21, 86 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Joe Mixon had 2 rushing touchdowns, 115 yards. He got his work cut out for him in this game. And it's really tricky if you're the Texans because you got this team with all this talent. And you're trying to get your things going, but your offensive line can't block. I mean, the Green Bay does have a great defense, but at the same time, you need to block if you're going to be a high-caliber team. And your star quarterback has to throw more than 86 yards. And, Colin, I'll ask you this. Is this alarming if you're a Texans fan? Is this alarming if you're on the Texans? Because they got all this talent, but is this offensive line going to be an issue later in the season?
Yeah, I mean, it is. PFF has them as the 22nd best offensive line in the league. Of course, this is a very young team, so it's a very developing team. So is the Green Bay Packers. These two teams will be very good for the next couple of years. They'll hit their peak in the next couple of years, I meant to say. But it definitely is concerning in this one. But, of Green Bay, I think it's more concerning that it took a game-winning field goal for you to win at home. This is a game you're expected to win at home. C.J. Stroud, of course, not looking good in this one. 10 of 21 for 86 yards. Not really much going on offense. Joe Mixon on the ground was the real reason why you were in this game. Of course, no Nico Collins, but still you can't use that as an excuse. Tank Dell was 0 receptions, 0 yards in this game. That's absolutely atrocious, especially in a game where you need to throw the ball as well. But I give the Packers defense some credit. They've been playing very, very well recently. And it seems like Green Bay's distributing the ball well on their side of the ball. I mean, Romeo Dobbs having himself a game, 8 receptions, 94 yards, and this one off of 10 targets after a couple weeks ago when he said, I'm not coming to practice because I'm not getting as many reps. So they're giving him the ball early and they're giving it well. Josh Jacobs in this one, 12 carries, 76 yards. He had a decent game as well. They get a running back from injury soon, I believe. They get I can't remember his name. I don't follow the Packers as much.
Yeah,
But they get Marshawn Lloyd. That's who I forgot. The rookie
Yeah.
Marshawn Lloyd. He's on IR, but when he comes back, should be interested. He should challenge Josh Jacobs for some reps. He was drafted out of USC. Young, 23-year-old, 5'9", 200-pounder Marshawn Lloyd. He looks like he could maybe help this Green Bay offense as well in the run game. But Green Bay, yeah, they play Jacksonville next week, so they're on a good roll. And especially you want to have a tune-up game against Jacksonville before you go into a heavy NFC North schedule. They play after that. They play the Lions and the Bears, 2 divisional opponents that look pretty decent right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think definitely, I think if any of these 2 teams are going to make it further in the playoffs, I think it's going to be Green Bay, only because I think the AFC is just too much saturation right now.
Yeah.
And I think the 4 best NFC teams are in the NFC North right now. It's debatable on whether or not the Bears, they haven't played many great opponents yet, so we'll see. But right now, you could at least say the Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions, and Green Bay Packers are the 3 best teams in the NFC right now. Let's go into another game, Andrew. Or do you have any thoughts on anything you want to
Yeah, I was just going to say, the crazy stat from the NFC North is if the season ended right now, all the teams in the NFC North would make it into the playoffs, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But also,
crazy.
The NFC there's some teams that are pretty bad right now. But speaking of the NFC North, let's turn it to the Lions and Packers.
Game of the week.
Yes, Lions came out on top 31-29. Vikings picking up their first loss of the season. Lions improving to 3-0 on the road. Jared Goff, 22 for 25, 280 yards and a stellar 2 touchdowns. Absolute great performance out of him. Jahmyr Gibbs led with 15 carries, 116 yards with a long of 45 and 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery followed behind him with 31 yards. As for Minnesota, Sam Darnold didn't play a shabby game, 22 for 27, 259 yards, a touchdown, but an interception. Aaron Jones had 93 yards and a touchdown. And Justin Jefferson had a touchdown as well. In this game, it was pretty back and forth. Minnesota came back. They scored 12 points in the fourth quarter, almost making a contest, but they came up just short. Detroit scored 21 points just before the half, and that was all in the second quarter. As for the Vikings, you just can't let up 21 points in a quarter, let alone in the second quarter. But I'll ask you, we kind of bounced off this earlier, but what do you think? If you had to pick one of these teams that's more suited, you kind of said the Packers earlier, but if you had to pick a team out of these two that's legit and that's suited for the playoffs, who would you say?
I mean, Detroit definitely is the obvious pick here. Minnesota came out hot. I mean, they came out hot with 10 points, and we really thought Minnesota was going to roll away with this game at home, especially coming off the bye week. It seemed like Kevin O'Connell had something cooking up for that offense and for their defense as well. They had a good scheme. But then in the second quarter, it just all changed. Interesting play call from Dan Campbell, who fake punt at the beginning of the game at their own side of the field. That's a bad call. It's not like it was a yard, and even if it was a yard, it's not a good call, especially at the beginning of the game. It gets you down 10, and if you asked a lot of Lions fans at the end of the first quarter, they'd be like, that was a dumb call. Why did we do that? Of course, they get bailed out by scoring 21 in the second, and you got to look at the other side of the ball, too, and Sam Darnold. The Minnesota not putting up a single point in the second absolutely hurts them, because when they try to claw back in this one at the end, of course Detroit gets 3 points at the end, makes the game-winning field goal to cap off their win. But it's got to be frustrating for Minnesota, because you came off that bye and you had so much preparation time, and it looks like you had this game won, and then Detroit drives down the field, scores a field goal, and they end up winning this one. But yeah, it's got to be frustrating. If I have to pick two of these teams, who's going to go further, I think it's Detroit right now. I still think they need a pass rusher. I think a lot of people still think they need a pass rusher right now. But I like the two-headed monsters they got at running back right now. Hopefully David Montgomery's okay. He went out of this game with a little bit of an injury. He did come back in the game and did perform, but it did seem like he was a little still hurt. So they turned to Jahmyr Gibbs, who was a great running back. 15 carries, 116 yards, 2 TDs. I think you mentioned it before. St. Brown had himself a game. Both of the teams had a turnover. Sam Darnold had an interception. I think it was a fumble on the other side from Jared Goff it was David Montgomery.
Yeah.
David Montgomery, my bad. Jared Goff fumbled, it says 2 times, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that. But both these defenses played well, I think, and both the offenses I think it was just a well thought out game. And of course, you're not going to have to worry about the next game's going to be in Detroit, so you're not going to have to worry about weather. And of course, you don't have to worry for both these two teams, because they both play in domes. So weather won't be a factor. Weather will be a factor if we talk about Lions, Packers, if we talk about Bears, Lions later in the season, if it gets really cold, because that might be a factor that goes into maybe the Bears or the Packers stealing a game from the Lions, because I don't think the Lions look very, very good right now. I don't know who's going to stop them exactly. They play the Titans this week, so they should beat the Titans, but they'll get tested again against the Packers the next week after that, and then they'll have the Texans after that. So they don't gotta. I mean, the Titans are a cupcake, but the two teams after that, those are very hard opponents back to back after that. What are your thoughts? Who do you think's going to go further in the playoffs? Is it going to be Minnesota or is it going to be the Lions?
I think I go with you. I'm gonna say Detroit. Because they obviously, like you said, Dan Campbell's ballsy play calling. That's just who he is. That's just the type of quarterback he is. But at the same time, I think Detroit is they're more experienced as a team. They've been put together longer. They've been together for a longer amount of time. Jared Goff has led this team for 4 or 5 years now. Sam Darnold is brand new. Aaron Jones is brand new. You got Justin Jefferson, but I think at the same time, at some point, this newness of the Vikings, I think that's going to kick in, and especially when you're playing a team like the Lions twice a year, especially when you're playing the Bears and the Packers twice a year. That fatigue and that new team is going to start to kick in, and we'll see that from the Vikings eventually. But I think they'll keep it going as of now. But yeah, I think Detroit is better suited for the playoffs. I want to switch it over to the next game, if you want.
Kansas City, San Francisco. Kansas City wins an injury-filled game where both sides had a bunch of injuries in this one, but Kansas City wins it 28-18. What are your thoughts on Patrick Mahomes throwing 2 interceptions and 154 yards in a win against the San Francisco 49ers?
It's frustrating because obviously a lot of the Chiefs are a pretty hated team by fans because they just keep winning. That's the same thing it was with the Patriots when Tom Brady was there. You got respect for Mahomes, but come on, how are you going to throw only 154 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions and win a ball game? This comes down to both teams being super banged up. Chiefs added an asset. We'll cover that later. As for the Niners, this is a tricky one too. You got Ayuk now out for the season. You got George Kittle. You got their healthiest guy just got shot in the chest, for Christ's sake. They're 3-4 now. The Niners are 3-4, especially if you're in the NFC, and they got all these big teams, these good teams in the Packers and the Lions and the Vikings, and I'm not gonna go too soon. I'm gonna say the Bears. But then you got but the leading rusher in this game, none other than Kareem Hunt, 2 touchdowns, 78 yards. But it's just like the Chiefs keep squeaking out wins no matter what. Travis Kelce didn't even play good too. He got 17 yards.
Yeah, Deebo Samuel, and for the 49ers, he was treated for pneumonia in the hospital 2 days ago. So yeah, he didn't play in this one, not feeling good at all. So I mean, both these teams were absolutely banged up in this one. But where does San Francisco go from here? Because we saw both these teams banged up. Both these teams equally were banged up. I don't think you could use that as an excuse. It seemed like Kyle Shanahan just got outcoached.
Yeah.
I don't know. He doesn't really adapt to the guys he's got in certain situations. He likes his schemes, and he runs his schemes a certain way. It seems like Andy Reid kind of adapts his scheme to the players he's got. A couple years ago when he had Tyreek Hill, a lot of deep balls downfield, stretching it vertically. Well, now you don't have Tyreek Hill. What do? Dink and dunk your way down the field. And they've shown time and time again, Mahomes gets the ball out quick. They have a decent offensive line. They play very good football that way. And this one, I think it is very impressive that you pull a running back from off the couch and Kareem Hunt. Let's be honest, he was retired, right?
Yeah.
And he goes on for 22 carries in this game, gets 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's impressive. That's all coaching. Schemes and everything. Because Kareem Hunt in his prime, he could do this, but still he's doing it at an elite level, especially at the age he is. I think this is very good to see that. I think we thought of Shanahan and Reid kind of at that level, like maybe Reid was up here a little bit. I think it's even bigger now. The gap between those two. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Kyle Shanahan and not really being able to adapt to players going down.
Because like you were saying, you can't use that excuse that your guys are injured because they're going to be. Like CMC, who knows if he's going to play this season?
Everyone's dealing with injuries right now.
Everybody's got injuries, so you got to adapt. It also doesn't help that your starting quarterback threw 3 interceptions. Here's
the question. Here's the question. Here's another question. Today, you're the GM of the San Francisco 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
Purdy walks in your office. He says, I want to be the highest paid quarterback. Dak Prescott just signed his deal, making him the highest paid quarterback. Are you signing that deal? Are you signing that long-term commitment? Because this was a very good testament to see everyone's out. When everyone's out, Mahomes is still able to win games. When everyone's out, we saw when everyone's out with Purdy, 3 interceptions. Are you signing that deal? What is this? Does this taper your expectations for Brock Purdy going forward?
Yeah, like you just said, if you walked into my office, I don't sign the guy. You want him to win games even when your team is banged up. They went to the Super Bowl because they had the team they had last year. Any quarterback, if you put Tim Boyle around, maybe not. If you put Tim Boyle around Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel, he's gonna look great. If you put him in the scheme that he was in last year, he's gonna look great. But not to notch down Brock Purdy.
Purdy's a very talented player.
Yeah.
I believe he's more talented than Jimmy Garoppolo ever was.
Yeah.
I just think this scheme is everything has to go perfect for him to win. Yeah. Everything went perfect for him in the Super Bowl, and they lost in overtime. Everything went their way. When things are not around him, I don't think he performs well. I think he's a good decision maker sometimes, and of course in this game he proves me wrong with 3 interceptions. But if you're San Francisco, who's to say if the Carolina Panthers are calling right now and they're like, we screwed up at quarterback, we need somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna offer you 3 first-round picks for Brock Purdy. Are you taking that deal?
I would if I was San Fran. It depends who you get back, and it depends who's going to take over for your team. Because
you might not get 3. You might get 2, but
yeah.
So 2 or 3. Would you trade Brock Purdy?
I think I would, just in the fact that he is to me, he's a system quarterback. You got all these guys around you. You got the most talented running back in the league. You got arguably the best tight end in the league. You got some of the best receivers in the league when they're healthy, but right now, this guy isn't winning you games, and your guys aren't going to come back for a while. Ayuk's out for the season, and CMC could be out for the season. But that's the thing. Do you trust your guy? Do you want him to stay, or do you want to trade him? Because you could put someone in there, maybe like not saying it, but like a Bryce Young, if he were to come over, a guy that's younger, a guy that's picked higher, but this is Purdy's
system.
Interesting
thought.
This is Purdy's
That's
system.
an interesting thought. You trade Purdy.
Yeah.
You get 2 first-rounders, and you get a former first-round pick and Bryce Young. You know how, exciting that would be? Because I think Shanahan could – he could plug and play somebody because the way they do it, they like to run the football. Mm-hmm. And then the way they pass is they bootleg off of that. They do play actions off of that. So I think – you could have any quarterback really run that. I mean, some will run it better than others, like Purdy ran it better than Garoppolo. But I think Bryce Young could benefit for something like this because they like to run the ball first and then throw after. And I think that's to Shanahan's detriment as well. Because when things aren't going his way, he still wants to run the ball. And sometimes that's good, but sometimes you need to pass. Has Purdy showed you that he could carry the team on his back and win a game? Purdy, we need you to throw 400 yards. We can't do this right now. We need you.
Yeah.
These elite guys out there can do it. Is Purdy in that conversation of elite guys, or is he closer to a Patrick Mahomes, or is he closer to a Dak Prescott?
I think
Dak Prescott, very good quarterback.
I think he's
but
closer,
not Mahomes.
I think he's
go ahead.
Yeah, I think he's closer to Dak Prescott because you got to prove it. You got to like you're saying, you got to win these games and your guys are out. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Niners are 3-4. They haven't had their top running back in the league. If you had CMC in all those games, they could very well be like 5-2. They could have a way better record. They could be 4-3. because that's his guy. That's Brock Purdy's guy. You said, oh, just hand the ball off to him, give me 10 yards, keep going. But like you were saying, he could very well be a system quarterback. I mean, that's what we saw. When he had the team around him, they're winning. When he doesn't, they're not winning. And he needs
I'm not saying he's a major system quarterback. I'm just saying I think there's a lot of other guys that could still run this offense at a high level as well. That's going to be interesting what they decide with the contract situation, but let's move on to another game that has people scratching their heads. Big news coming out of this team last week. They traded for Davante Adams, and this one sending over a pick over to the Raiders. But they end up losing on Sunday Night Football against Russell Wilson, who let Steeler countries ride to a win on Sunday night, 37-15. What were your thoughts on this game?
It's an interesting situation because this is Aaron Rodgers' team, but they did just fire their head coach. Then you got Breece Hall only getting 12 carries. He had a touchdown. And Davante, he had 3 receptions for 30 yards. Obviously, this was his first game in here. Not much time to prepare, but you're going to want to get him the ball more. Your leading receiver in this is Breece Hall, 6 receptions, 103 yards. At the same time, I want to ask you this for the Steelers. Do you think Russell Wilson secured the starting job as long as he's healthy? Do you think this is his job, or do you think this is like a test, and then if he plays bad, they're going to put Fields back in? What do you think is the situation going on in Pittsburgh? Because he looked pretty good for playing how he did with Denver. But I think, he looks pretty good compared to how he was these past years.
Yeah, I think he has a different element to the offense that Fields didn't have. That deep ball was very, very good. He's able to stretch the ball out vertically, and I think the person who absolutely benefited from this was George Pickens, absolutely going insane during this game. 5 receptions for 111 yards and a touchdown. He went off in this game. Of course, they got Najee Harris going with 21 carries, 102 yards and a touchdown. They got Jalen Warren involved as well. You should see more from him as well as Najee Harris. They got a good 1-2 going there. It's very interesting in this one. I think Pittsburgh can make a better run. Do I think they're a Super Bowl team? No, I don't think they're a Super Bowl team, but they could definitely give some people problems in the playoffs. But Russ definitely showed that he could play in this one, and it looked rough in the first half. Now, don't get me wrong, it looked rough, but able to come back in the second, put up some points, and end up winning. But looking on the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, Rodgers got his coach fired. Says, I want Davante Adams. He gets Davante Adams. I think the problem is there's only 2 guys that Rodgers has played with. Davante Adams and Alan Lazard, really, right?
Yeah.
They need to make a trade right now for Mike McCarthy. They need to drag Jordy Nelson from the farms of wherever he's at.
Yeah.
They need to get him suited up on the field. You need to get all these former players. You need to get David Bakhtiari first playing out to New York, and he needs to be there because every one of his guys got to be there.
Eddie Lacy.
And Eddie Lacy, Aaron Jones, get guys like those out there. We need basically Green Bay, and maybe the Jets can implement maybe a yellow stripe on the on the sleeve or something to make Aaron feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
No, it's an absolute travesty what they've done with the team. This was such a young, talented team, coached very good defensively by the head coach. That used to be Robert Saleh there. They just didn't get it right on the offensive side of the ball. Rodgers, he acts like he's the GM of this team. He might be the GM of this team, but they're not winning. They're not winning games, and of course, it takes time to develop relationships and develop trust with some teams. But when you skip before the season practices, that's not a good look.
Mm-hmm.
You did not get those valuable reps you needed to start the season off hot. And Breece Hall in this game absolutely saved him because they just threw the ball to him a lot, and he just went insane this game. He didn't have much on the ground, but he did have a lot in the receiving game, 6 receptions for over 103 yards. I think Davante Adams wasn't targeted. Well, he was targeted a little bit. I mean, Garrett Wilson had 9 targets, 5 for 61. Adams had 3 for 30. He had 9 targets. rough. Of course, it's hopefully going to get better for them. But what are your thoughts on this Jets team?
Yeah, it's like you were saying, this is Rodgers' team, but how much do you want to put into this guy? Because Rodgers has only got 2 years left, maybe a year. Who knows? He can be Tom Brady. He's 40 years old. You can now say this: you got Rodgers, got all these guys in here. You got El Lazard, you got Devontae. Get to the end of the season, Rodgers is like, I'm done. I retire. Now you got all these old guys. Your young guys are gone. Your young head coach is gone. And you're not winning games. And then you got to start all over. You got to get a new quarterback. You got to build the team around someone else. You're building the team around this guy, Rodgers, to win now. You need to win now. And the fact that you're 2-5, and you just traded for another guy that Rodgers wanted. This is Rodgers' team. So if Rodgers is going to want it, he's going to have to play better, and they're going to have to win ball games. But
yeah, they're not doing very good at all. I think we've touched on them enough so far. Let's head to Baltimore, Tampa Bay, the Monday Night Football game that everyone was watching. This one putting up an amazing score. Baltimore ends up winning this one 41-31. They really took the game away in the second half. Tampa Bay comes back, onside kick, they get it, touchdown. But the real story in this one, you lose Mike Evans, you lose Chris Godwin for Tampa Bay. Are you in the market for a wide receiver right now?
Yeah, I think it would be just because you don't know, because obviously Chris Godwin's out for the season. And Mike Evans, he's been spotty. I mean, he's all reliable, but he only had a reception for 25 yards here, and he's been in and out and questionable as weeks have gone on. You got Rashad White, you got Cade Otton, you got Bucky Irving.
I like Cade Otton. Yeah, I think he'll get some more reps.
But you're gonna need another guy, especially
because I have him in fantasy. Just because I like him, right? Let's keep this honest. Just because I like him as a player.
You're gonna need another guy.
You're gonna need another guy. We'll go into a couple guys that we can maybe see go. Of course, there's a big name out of the Rams organization that we will talk about in our next segment. But let's continue on this game.
Yeah,
I think I said this last week. It should be illegal to have Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson on the same team. I'm sorry, it should be. Derrick Henry, 15 carries, 169 yards in this one.
Yeah,
an average of 11.3 yards. Wow.
Not to mention his long was 81 too, and he got up to I think it was a speed of 23 miles an hour or something. How is this dude running like he is? You're old for a running back. And especially getting an 81-yard run. He's Derrick Henry's 30 years old. That's old for a running back. The fact he was able to build up that speed to get that long run, that's huge, especially for his age. And it's not fair because Lamar can run.
Not fair. Lamar rushes for this one, 9 carries, 52 yards. They totaled as a team 244 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
That is insane, the amount of production they're getting.
Not to mention Lamar threw 5 touchdowns and threw 281 yards. So it's not
That's amazing coming from your second string running back. Who couldn't ask for anything better?
It's not like the passing game is struggling or anything. They're just cooking. They struggled to begin the season, but they really really turned it up, because if you would have asked me, I thought this game would be a lot closer than it was. And they have won 5 games in a row now after losing the first 2. And they do got Cleveland, Denver, and Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh these next coming weeks, which they could very well win all those games. And then you got LA and Philly and the New York Giants. Your toughest game is not until Christmas Day when they're playing Houston. So,
I mean, looking at this team, it just sucks that they lost to, out of all teams, Gardner Minshew and the Raiders earlier this season.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't, they would be 1 game behind Kansas City, and you might have a shot to host a playoff game in the AFC Championship game if Kansas City loses 2 times. Now Kansas City needs to lose 3 times, and you need to win out for you to host the playoff game and maybe an AFC Championship game. But Mark Andrews looked back to form. He caught 2 touchdown passes in this one. He caught 4 balls, 41 yards. Rashad Bateman, holy crap.
Yeah.
4 catches, 121 yards and a touchdown. He's a guy we've been waiting for to break out. He breaks out in this game. I don't know if it's longevity's not going to be there. Of course, Zay Flowers goes out early with an injury. That also affects them, and they might be in the wide receiver market because really they have only Zay Flowers. Bateman's going to give you a game here or there, but they don't have anything else besides. I mean, they got Mark Andrews, but he's not performing as well. He's another guy I see definitely. Another team, see going for a wide receiver in the wide receiver market.
Just imagine for a second, Tyreek Hill on the Ravens. That would be unfair. Nor do I know if they have the money.
I don't think they trade him because he's an AFC opponent and they have Tua coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one thing I don't really see that, but I like what you're saying here. I like I like the concept of big names being traded because we didn't think we'd have this crazy wide receiver market right now. Amari Cooper gets shipped off. We had DeAndre Hopkins, which we're going to talk about, and we have Devontae Adams, like that. Like, you know how crazy that is. These names that we're talking about. We have one more game to go over real quick, and we're just gonna glance over it real quick and kind of laugh at the New York Giants. I mean, kind of gave away who we're talking about next. The Eagles end up winning in Philadelphia in Saquon Barkley's revenge game, 28-3. 28-3, the first half score of the Falcons and Patriots Super Bowl. Yeah. Unfortunately, the New York Giants were not able to come back in this one. And, of course, going back to the offseason hard knocks, they have said I would lose sleep if Saquon Barkley went to the Eagles.
Yeah.
And, of course, the GM said, no, I think he's going to go to the Bears.
No.
He's going to go to the Bears?
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Eagles have a top 10 offensive line almost every single season. They have one of the most talented offensive line coaches. Of course, they lose Jason Kelsey, but they still have a decent offensive line. He goes to Philly, doesn't skip a beat in this one, 17 carries, 176 yards and a touchdown. If you were a Giants fan, would you be furious right now?
Yeah. You just traded away your best running back, arguably, in a while. But the fact that he went off against your old team, too, and they lost 28-3. Andrew Luck played in the end of this game. The Giants and Panthers are both in shambles. Not to throw shade to the Panthers when we're not even talking about them, but both these teams look god-awful. And
the Panthers didn't deserve that. The Panthers didn't deserve that. You did them dirty.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, but there's not much really to say in this. Malik Neighbors didn't even get a single touchdown. He had 41 yards.
Every time Jones dropped back, it seemed like it was a sack. I want to see the total sacks in this game.
Seven sacks for 56 yards.
They had 8 sacks in this game. 10 tackles for loss. Absolutely insane in this one. Sacks were going all the time. What I don't understand is if your quarterback's getting that pressured, why do you hand the ball off only 18 times during this game? I don't understand it as much. I guess we'll never know. Daniel Jones pulled out of this game early. He sucked. I mean, he's terrible. There definitely is going to be some turnover. I was shocked when I didn't hear that the GM of the Giants wasn't fired after this game. Because remember, a couple years back, when A.J. Brown left the Titans, he was traded away to the Eagles. That game against Eagles-Tennessee, A.J. Brown goes off. The next day, the Titans fire their GM because they traded away their best player. Yeah. Like, this is outrageous. And if you're the Giants, where do you go from here? You don't have a quarterback. You like the coach, but your GM's terrible. Like, where do you go from here? You're in one of the biggest markets.
It's tricky because you got the talent in the draft. You got Malik Neighbors. He's a great receiver. You just don't even know to throw to him. Daniel Jones, you still have him locked up. He had that one good year, and it's like, oh, let's lock him up for a couple of years. No. And then you got the leading rusher in this game, Tyrone Tracy, and then Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary is old. He's been old for a while. Tyrone Tracy, he's he's a bit younger. He was drafted this year. 5th round pick out of Purdue.
But he just had a good game last game, and they don't give him a shot.
Exactly.
And that's not my saltiness because I have him on fantasy. I swear.
It is. But it's,
Don't out me out here, okay? Tyrell Tracy is your best player. You should be handing him the ball 30 times a game and throwing it to him at least 15 times so I can get my fantasy. I mean, so the Giants could win.
Yeah.
That's why.
Exactly. It's frustrating seeing these bad teams just be bad, but whatever. They're gonna win. They're gonna lose games.
Bad team's always gonna be bad.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let's go into another segment. We thought since the trade deadline is coming up towards the end, I think it's the 5th is the deadline of November. Yeah. I'm gonna name out a couple names that guys that might be on the market right now. Guys like Zadarius Smith from the Cleveland Browns. He's a very talented edge rusher on the older side of things, but still could be a very valuable asset to a team. Who do you think would trade for a guy like Zadarius Smith?
2 teams, and both teams are in the NFC North. I think the Chicago Bears will trade for him because if they're gonna be a win now team, especially with some of the older assets they have, and you're gonna need a guy opposite of Sweat. It's going to be they need to get an edge, and we need an offensive line too. But if you're going to be a win-now team, that's
you think the Bears are a win-now team?
I think considering the age of some of they're a young team, I get that, but you have some older assets on your defense, and Tremaine Edmonds, T.J. Edwards, Montez Sweat. I feel like they're in win-now mode, but also the same time, you got Roschon, you got younger receivers. I feel like they're in a win in the next couple of years kind of team, not potentially this season, but I think Zadarius Smith could be an asset to help you compete in the tough NFC North. But I think another team that could very well be on the market for Zadarius Smith, probably the top team in my opinion, is the Detroit Lions, especially like we were talking about earlier. They need
Detroit definitely needs a pass rusher, and maybe this next guy might be their guy. Let's think about Chase Young. He signed with the New Orleans Saints this past offseason. He was traded to the 49ers last season, didn't do much in their Super Bowl run. He goes to the New Orleans Saints, of course, very talented first-round draft pick out of Ohio State. He's a guy that could be very valuable, and I could see the Lions kind of trading for him. They're a team that definitely needs a pass rusher. If you're, I think if you're Cincinnati, you could justify trading for a guy like that. You need someone on your defense. Your defense has absolutely sucked recently, and I think their team is too talented. That offense is too talented to not try to build something up and kind of go for something this year. They could still end up winning games. I like maybe the Lions definitely is calling for a pass rusher going here and there. I think everyone's calling for pass rushers and wide receivers. But what do you think of a guy like Chase Young maybe moving on and going to a contender?
Yeah, I think like we were saying earlier with Zadarius Smith, I think the Lions will be the guy for him. He's a bit younger. I mean, he's on the kind of older side, and he hasn't done much with the Saints this year, but he can be a guy that if you put him in the right spot and get him in the right system, that he could play great. Because we saw him with the Commanders, and he played pretty good. But yeah, this would be a guy that, I could very well see him be on the move, but a team that would like have a set spot for him to play.
Chase Young is 25 years old, so he's still pretty young in this one. This season, he's got only a 1.5 sacks, so he's not really lighting it up. You'd maybe want to see him light it up a little bit before the trade deadline to kind of get more value out of him if you were going to trade him. But another guy that we have coming off of an injury this Thursday night was asked this past week about some potential trade rumors. And yes, I'm talking about Mr. Cooper Kupp for the Los Angeles Rams. Some crazy rumors have gone on in the Rams organization. So far, I've heard some very crazy stuff. This is not the only Los Angeles Ram we have on our list right here, but Cooper Kupp, where do you think he goes as a wide receiver? He could be if healthy, he's a very good wide receiver. Where does he go?
Yeah, I just think the only concerns with him being traded is his health, because it's been these past 2 years he's been banged up, which obviously will notch down his price tag. But I could probably see 2 teams. I would say the Chiefs, but they got D-Hop now, so I don't think they go for him. I would say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially with they have Mike Evans, who's older, Cooper Kupp's older. I think they could see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or I could see the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, like you were saying, they only got Zay Flowers. Could be a little tricky, but what teams would you say?
I'm going to throw a dart out here. I was talking about it today, and I kind of talked myself into it. Cincinnati's defense is piss poor, and their offense has been very, very good. Screw with the defense. You're going to need to put up 40 points a game if you're going to win with that defense. So why don't you trade for a guy like Cooper Kupp? Having Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Cooper Kupp being your slot receiver, your ex being Jamar Chase, and on the other side of the ball you have T. Higgins. That is insanely good, especially when you have Chase Brown in the backfield, very electric running back with a 1-2 punch with Moss. And, of course, Joe Burrow's playing very, very well this season. Could we see Cooper Kupp go to a team like the Bengals and make an impact like that? I'd like that move. If I'm the Bengals, kind of adding another guy, it doesn't hurt, and especially with his wisdom as well and in the knowledge that he knows, I think that would be beneficial to a team like the Bengals that need to start winning games, and who helps you win more games than Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, exactly. I think that could be very, very good spot for him too. I could see that system working. But another guy we had down, or Colin put down, was Budda Baker.
Budda Baker.
Yeah, like you have down, he's a free agent after this season.
In 2025.
Yeah.
So this is all depending on whether or not they think they're going to re-sign him or not. He's a very, very good safety. Has been a very, very good safety for a long time in the NFL right now. Where could I see him going? I mentioned, of course, the Bengals. They need a safety. They lost Bates this past offseason, so he automatically fits in there. I know Bates plays free safety. Budda plays strong safety, but you can maybe move some stuff around. How about I can't think of another team really right now, but there definitely might be a market for him. I'm trying to think of teams that need a safety. Not really many teams. Minnesota could use him. That would be a great landing spot. Think about if the Ravens got a hold of Budda Baker.
Oh my
I know they got Kyle Hamilton and they got some safeties, but adding Budda Baker out there is just a guy, a very good athlete. Holy crap. I would love to see that happen because they just got so many good players on that defense. Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton. I mean, there's just so many names out there. Budda Baker there looks, to me, that's an unstoppable defense as well. But definitely he's a guy to keep a lookout. And another guy to keep a lookout is on a struggling team right now, and Deontay Johnson and the Carolina Panthers. Of course, his health dictates this. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries right now. But Deontay Johnson been lighting it up a couple past weeks. Could make it very interesting. Come the deadline, he might get shipped because, you know, this Carolina team doesn't look good right now.
Yeah, no, they don't got many assets, and you need the most you can, I guess, to build the team back up. And it depends what a team wants to offer for Deontay Johnson. But I think another team, like we said him earlier, I think the Bucs could very well grab him. You need another playmaker, and it could be him.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
A guy you don't want to give up too much for, but a guy you need to make plays for you. I think it could very, very well be them. But I could also, like you said before with the Bengals, I could see him making a role on the Bengals. He's not like that veteran guy, but he could be placed in the system and potentially ball out there, or else I could very well see the
I don't think the Chiefs are done.
No.
I don't think the Chiefs are done at all. Chiefs will be very interesting. I think Cooper Kupp is still on the table. I think Deontay Johnson might still be on the table. I think the Chiefs are not done getting a wide receiver. I mean, I think they need another guy. Hopkins is a very good guy, but if he gets hurt, then who else is next up? So having depth is very good, making a run. And the next player that I have written down here, I was scrolling across something, and I thought this is an interesting story. I had Matthew Stafford to the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
So I clicked on it. I'm like, this is interesting. Matthew Stafford, of course, win now. They need a win now team, right? Trade him to the Vikings, which has the same system. They send in return Sam Darnold, and they send I don't think a first round pick, but you send another draft pick to a Rams team that needs some draft capital. And they're not doing too well right now, so might as well sell your guys. If you're shopping a guy like Cooper Kupp, you're out of it already. You kind of do a 1-for-1 swap. That way, the Rams get their guy for the future they could build around in Sam Darnold. And it allows J.J. McCarthy, who you spent a first-round draft pick on to the Vikings, to sit behind Matthew Stafford for 2 more seasons. I think that's a win-win deal for both organizations in that aspect. Instead of letting Sam Darnold walk, because you're obviously going to go with J.J. McCarthy. You spent that draft pick on him. There's no way Sam Darnold's going to cost too much money after this season to be worth it. Yeah. So you trade him to the Rams in exchange for Matthew Stafford and a couple draft picks. And I like that deal. I don't know. I don't think it's very far-fetched. How about you?
Yeah. Another thing I saw, and could be a huge trade package, but maybe instead of putting just Stafford in that trade package, you do Stafford and Kupp and package them together and put them in Minnesota.
That would be insane.
That would be insane.
Imagine a Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Cooper Kupp with Matthew Stafford there, and you have Dalvin Cook in the backfield. How insane, especially with that very talented defense they have in Minnesota. That might be an automatic Super Bowl contender. Of course, you worry about trading a quarterback midseason and not slowing down a little bit, but I don't see why you don't consider that as an option. I think that's a great trade, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly, because like we were saying, the Rams are struggling. And Matthew Stafford is old, and he's getting old. And Sam Darnold is still younger. I believe he's 26, 27, I want to say. So he's still younger, and he's still got potentially 10 years in the league. And we see how he's playing now. And maybe Minnesota's like, okay, this is our guy. But like you said, they got J.J. McCarthy. And how much experience does Sam Darnold have to develop?
Sam Darnold is 27 years old. Yeah. You know what would be crazy if they play this game, and then after the game the next day they do this trade?
Yeah.
Because it would make the most sense. You play the game. See if you like the guy. You do this trade off of a Thursday night game. They get there Friday. They have more time to learn the playbook. They have more time to do a lot more things. So it could happen. It could happen theoretically. Who knows in this one? But hey,
yeah,
I think those are a couple of the guys that
that
can make some noise.
I feel like that trade out of the ones we said makes the most sense. Like you said, it's let's
talk about some NFL news and some trade that actually went down a couple days ago. DeAndre Hopkins from the Titans to the Chiefs. He's gonna maybe make his debut this Sunday. What are your thoughts on that trade?
Yeah, I think it's good for the Chiefs, but considering you have so many injuries already, D-Hop isn't known to be the healthiest receiver ever. So we hope that he can be. Hopefully he's healthy for the Chiefs. At the same time, with all the injuries they've had, but you can also, it'll be an interesting situation to say the least. Especially if he can get the ball and play like he did on the Texans. He didn't really play the greatest like he did on the Titans. He had some good games. But this is a big receiver that the Chiefs have. You haven't had the guy that has this veteran experience since Tyreek Hill left, really. You have Juju Smith-Schuster, who has a couple years. You don't really have this guy that's been a top receiver in the league. He's not really now, but has been a top receiver in the league for a while. But what are your opinions?
I still think he's good.
Yeah.
I think he's been put down by bad quarterback play. We've had a good game this season we've seen from him, so I think he's still on the older side of 30 of what you'd want, but I still think he's very effective, and I think he could be a very, very good option in this offense. Of course, he's not going to take over a game like he used to be able to, but he's going to be a very good pass option. I like this. You give up basically nothing, a 4th-round draft pick. You're going to go to a Super Bowl. I laughed because it was a conditional 5th-round draft pick. If they make the Super Bowl, it's a 4th-round draft pick, so it's a 4th-round draft pick.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Let's go to Miami. Tua being asked by reporters, I don't know if you saw this, but Tua being asked by reporters if he was going to wear a Guardian cap. He's like, I'm not wearing that thing. Kind of very dismissive out there. It doesn't look like he really ever thought of retiring after his injury, and I know it lingers in the back of our minds because it's very scary when you see a guy go down like that so many times. You feel like he's going to hurt himself and not going to have a future, but what are your thoughts on Tua coming back? He's not wearing a Guardian cap, and he's just very dismissive of this whole situation.
I think as a guy, it's sort of the responsibility is to be like, yeah, I thought of wearing the Guardian cap, but that's not for me. You don't be so dismissive about wearing something that's to protect your head, especially with all these injuries you've had. And now if he's dismissive about this and gets injured again and again, how does that look? Because those things are made to protect you. It doesn't matter how they look. It's made to protect him. And if you're going to keep getting banged up like that, like with his last injury, I don't think the Guardian cap would have helped. But at the same time, especially if you're coming off this big injury and you're playing football, which is such a violent game, the Guardian cap will help you. But the fact that he was so dismissive about it is probably what's not sitting right with me. But exactly.
It's very interesting. Let's go to another interesting kind of topic to talk about. Matt LaFleur brings in ex-Jets head coach Robert Saleh to help the Packers at practice. He's actually on the offensive side of the ball. So a defensive-minded coach being an offensive assistant. It's very interesting to kind of get the concept of the defense, like what the defense is thinking in the offensive room. I think it's a good I think it's a good idea when you bring in a guy like Matt LaFleur who knows the defense very, very well. Very obvious that he knows the defense very well. He coached a very good defense with the Jets. But what are your thoughts about the Packers bringing in Robert Saleh?
Yeah, I think it's a very good thing, especially with how close Saleh and LaFleur are. I believe Saleh was LaFleur's best man, or LaFleur was Saleh's best man or something at their wedding. But especially, you got this guy. Saleh isn't a bad coach. He just didn't fit in Rodgers' system or whatever. But yeah, if you can, because he's with the Packers now, the Packers could get a good role for him going, and potentially giving him that opportunity to maybe get back out there as a head coach. But yeah, very interesting story that we got to cover and keep following. Another story is Cooper. We kind of covered it earlier. I think Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are both back off of the injury reserve.
Yeah, Puka's not playing tonight's game, but he's going to probably come back in the next coming weeks, so it'll be very interesting to see. But it's good to see Cooper Kupp back, and let's see what he does this Thursday night. Of course, this will come out after the Thursday night. We'll pick the games tonight, see if we're right. You'll see in the morning if we're right. But and all that. Very interesting. I'm looking over this article right now. It says the Giants owner is not anticipating making coaching or GM changes after 2024. What it sounds to me is, looking at it, it's like standing behind his guys until he not stands behind his guys. I feel like you have to say, oh, I'm sticking by the coach, I'm sticking by the GM while they're in your organization right now. And then after that, like, yeah, I really didn't like him at all. Like, what are your thoughts on this? It would be a very New York Giants thing to do, keeping the head coach and keeping the GM after this season, though.
Yeah, they had one good year, and considering they've been so bad for these last few years, you got to get rid of someone.
Puka does return to the field tonight.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I just got that.
Wow.
I mean, you were telling me he's returning. I didn't know he was actually like. I heard he wasn't gonna play tonight. Okay, that's very
He'll probably
interesting.
be on very limited snaps, but still.
Could be on a snap count.
Yeah. It is an interesting situation for the Giants, just because how bad this team has been for so long. But another interesting story is Andy Dalton got in a car crash and instead he sprained his thumb. He was with his family.
Bryce Young starting.
Prayers out to Andy Dalton. But yeah, Bryce Young getting a start here. It's against the Broncos.
Very good that he's okay, though.
Yeah.
That him and his family are okay. That's a real thing. Bryce Young gets his second thought. We'll go over that more when we pick the games. And I think our news segment has wrapped up here. We can rapid fire pick the games and maybe stop and pick certain teams we want to talk about. But let's start off with tonight's game, Minnesota at Los Angeles. Who do you have in this one?
I'm going to say Minnesota. I'm going to think they're going to keep it going. They're going to prove why Sam Darnold should be the next starting quarterback for the LA Rams. And
I'm going to go Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings as well. I think they end up getting this one. It'll be very interesting to see how Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua come back. I didn't know Puka was going to start in this one,
Yeah.
but hopefully he plays very good in this one. I'm hoping for the best. Let's go to the next one, Philadelphia at Cincinnati. This should be a very good game. Who do you have in this one?
Yeah, I think the Bengals could pull it out in this one. I think the Eagles have been spotty. They are 4-2, but at the same time, the Bengals are home, and I think they're gonna have a pretty rowdy crowd, and they're gonna have a rowdy team that's gonna come out and beat the Eagles. But it's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, I'm going to go the exact opposite because you went with the Bengals. I'm going to go with the Eagles. I'm going to go with the Bengals. I like the Bengals offense right now. Philadelphia's coming off of they haven't really put up points.
Mm-hmm.
Really have put up very consistent points. I feel like they're very heavy on Saquon Barkley, and they haven't been very good in the pass game. Of course, they only really connected on a couple go balls to A.J. Brown. So I think Cincinnati's going to win this one. They need to win this one at home. They desperately need to win to get back to 500. That would be very good as their division, they need to keep up with the two teams at the top, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, if they're going to want a shot at winning this division. But yeah, I'm going to pick Cincinnati in that one as well. So we both picked the same teams. Let's go to another AFC North two teams, Baltimore at Cleveland. I think we both are going with Baltimore in this one.
Yeah, there's no way Cleveland wins this. But I mean, Jameis
All
could
right.
ball out and prove us wrong, but I don't think.
Yeah, Jameis Winston starting that game.
Yeah.
Does that improve the Browns' chances of winning this game?
I think it does. It definitely does, but I don't think they're gonna beat the Ravens. The Ravens are just so good.
You know, it could be another 30 for 30 game. You know,
Yeah.
you could go. He could throw 5 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, Jameis Winston. You never really know with that one. But let's go to Tennessee at Detroit. A very interesting game. Do you think Tennessee's going to go into
No.
Ford Field and I can't say it with a straight face?
No.
I'm taking the Lions.
Yeah,
I'm
Lions.
taking the Lions in this one. I don't think anyone's going to have money on Tennessee in this one.
No.
Arizona at Miami. Tua coming back this week. Does he end up getting the Miami a much needed win?
No, I don't. I think the Cardinals are gonna. They lost in heartbreaking fashion to the Chargers, and they're gonna want to come back. I believe they did lose, but they're gonna want to come back for blood. And I don't think Tua. Oh no, they won against the Chargers. My bad. But yeah, they won, and it was a close game. But I don't think Tua is gonna do much in his return game. He can prove me wrong, but I think the Cardinals are gonna win it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Arizona in this one. I think Arizona is just I don't know if Tua is going to be really rusty, I want to say.
Yeah.
Coming off the concussion, he might be a little scared to be out there. Who knows? You don't know the mindset of a guy going from two scary concussions back to on the field. Let's go to New York Jets at New England Patriots. Would this be the most New York Jets thing if they lose to the Patriots this week?
Yeah, that would be, but I don't know. I feel like just because I want to see it and just because I want to see Aaron Rodgers lose, I'm going to pick the Patriots.
All right, I'm going to pick the Patriots as well.
All right, let's just move.
I don't know. I just think it would be very funny to see the Patriots win. And look, we haven't talked about it as much, but Drake May is playing some good football right now. If they can get that defensive side of the ball figured out, and especially because they're at home in this game, could get the crowd on their side, get a couple touchdowns early, get some doubt in this New York Jets offense, and we could see a good outing for New England. So
Yeah.
I'll go with New England in that one. Let's go Atlanta at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay with all the injuries in this one. Who do you got?
I'm going to say Atlanta here. I just don't like the amount of injuries Tampa has. I bet you we could see them reach out for a trade before the following week. But I think that the
Bucky Irving questionable for this one. We have I'm reading over the I lost it.
Yeah, I think the Falcons are going to win this. They got a better put together team with Kirk Cousins. Bijan's going to get a
I'm
good
gonna take the Vikings. Not Vikings. Jeez, yeah. I'm going to take the Vikings over Atlanta and Tampa Bay. I think the Vikings are going to fly in and win this game. No, I'm taking Atlanta in this one. Tampa Bay, they kept it close in the first matchup. They don't have their guys. It's going to be Atlanta winning and actually sweeping against them this season. Green Bay at Jacksonville. The Jacksonville Jaguars, are they going to put up a fight against this Green Bay team.
I think they'll surprise some people, but I don't think they'll win. I think the Packers are going to take it. It's either going to be a blowout or it's going to be a close game because
Green Bay winning this one. I have that as well. Indianapolis at Houston.
I think it's going to be Texans. I don't think the Colts. Anthony Richardson's too spotty.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Houston this one, although they do play very close games. They've always played very close games, these two teams, no matter how good or bad the other team is. New Orleans Saints at LA Chargers. Who do you have in that one?
This one could be back and forth, but I think the Chargers are going to take it. I think they're going to be out for blood after losing.
I think the Chargers as well are going to take this one. Buffalo, Seattle in this one. Seattle being hot, but Buffalo's also hot coming into this game. They won last week. Do you think they keep it rolling on the road against Seattle?
Yeah, I think it's Buffalo here. I mean, Seattle could very well surprise people. They've played some good football, but I think the Bills will win it.
I'm gonna go with Seattle in this one at home, getting the fans roaring behind you. Could be a very close game. Give me Seattle in this one in the upset. Kind of, it would be an upset if that happened. Let's go to Carolina and Denver. Who do you have in that one?
You can't bet against Bryce. You can't bet for Bryce Young, so I gotta go do the Broncos. I can't.
I'm gonna go with the Broncos as well. They've been playing very well, very good football right now. So I'm gonna take Denver in that one. Let's go to Kansas City at Las Vegas. You better take Vegas. You better take Vegas.
I mean, just for the heck of it, I'll take Vegas. But I mean, I'm not gonna bet against the Chiefs.
Then we're both taking Las Vegas. Gardner Minshew's gonna ball out for 300 yards this game.
You don't put money against the Chiefs, but at the same time, it'd be funny.
No, I'm going with the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to win this one, and we both picked. 3:25 game of the week. Chicago at Washington. Who do you got in this one?
Arguably, I'd think the game of the week. Only if Jaden Daniels was playing. I don't think he's going to play this week. He's week to week. Just because it's a Marcus Mariota start, not my bias going in, but I'm going to say the Bears. I think they're going to come off the bye week hunting for another win. And this would be a big one for them to do because this could very well be a team they might see in the playoffs, and they played them the past couple of years. They played good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bears in this one. Their defense has definitely played very, very well, and the real question is with the offense, if they could stay very consistent and putting up some good points, I could definitely see the Bears making some noise. It's kind of a game that the Bears are expected to win now that Jaden Daniels is gone. It should be a very good game as well, even though Marcus Mariota came in last week and he played absolutely phenomenal. And in relief of the injured Jaden Daniels, who we didn't talk about as our news, we should have talked about in our news segment, but he's out with a rib injury. He came in for relief throwing 18-23 for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he looked pretty dang good in this one. So it should be a closer game than we all think is going to happen, but I think I'll take the Bears in this one. Let's go to the Sunday Night Football game. Dallas at San Francisco.
Yeah, both teams have been very disappointing, but I think just because of the home field advantage, I'm going to take the Niners in this one. I think Dallas is just that bad. They are 3-0 away.
It's been a lot of talk going on in their organization right now. A lot of people blaming other people, and I don't really like how it's going there. But I do like that they're coming off of a bye and that they're healthy. So I'm going to take Dallas in this one. Monday Night Football, New York Giants at Pittsburgh. Who are you taking?
I'm gonna take Pittsburgh. You can't go for the Giants.
Yeah, I think you have to take Pittsburgh. And what is with all these primetime Pittsburgh games this year? This is outrageous. The amount of primetime football games we're getting with the Steelers. We had the Cowboys Steelers, we had the Jets Steelers, and then they come back and they play another primetime game.
Yeah.
And they have another primetime game in 2 weeks.
What the heck?
This is outrageous.
Yeah.
They're playing too many of them.
Oh my god.
I don't know. But I'm gonna take Steelers Country Let's Ride in this one. I think this wraps up week 8 of the NFL season. Hope everyone enjoys the game tonight. And hope our predictions were correct. And we'll see you all next week on a new episode of Anytime Sports Podcast Show. I am your co-host Colin, here with my other co-host Andrew, and we'll sign it off.
See you guys next week.
Yeah, sun shining, 24/7, clouds floating. Wait, is this heaven? Didn't even die to get here, yeah. Looking for the top, it's so clear, yeah.